another shockwave just hit Saturday Night Live. In the span of a single week, 4 cast members have suddenly announced their departures, including one of the show's most recognizable veterans and a rising new face. Heidi Gardner, after 8 unforgettable seasons of quirky, unforgettable characters, is walking away. And Michael Longfellow, who was just starting to carve out his place with his sharp, dry delivery, is also leaving. For longtime fans, this isn't just another cast shuffle. It feels like the foundation of SNL itself is shifting. Why are so many people leaving all at once? Is this just the usual end-of-season turnover, or is something deeper going on behind the scenes? That's where the story gets interesting. Heidi Gardner's departure is the one fans are talking about most. After 8 seasons on Saturday Night Live, she wasn't just another cast member. She had become one of the show's most reliable players. Her characters, from the hilariously anxious Angel to the over-the-top boxer's girlfriend, gave her a reputation for bringing a neurotic but lovable energy to every sketch. 8 years is a long run on SNL, and usually when someone leaves after that much time, it's either to chase bigger opportunities or because the producers feel it's time for a fresh face. But the timing of Heidi's exit has sparked questions. Was this a decision she made on her own, or was it part of the major changes that creator Lorne Michaels recently hinted at? Either way, her absence will be felt. For many viewers, Heidi was the glue in sketches that didn't always work on paper. Without her, SNL loses a steady performer with a unique comedic style, and fans are already wondering if the show can fill that gap. But Heidi isn't the only one leaving. Another comedian who was just finding his footing is also walking out the door. If Heidi Gardner's exit feels like the end of an era, Michael Longfellow's departure feels more like a story that ended too soon. He joined the cast in 2022, and in just 3 short seasons had already made a name for himself with his dry, almost detached delivery. His humor worked best when he leaned into that understated persona, turning awkwardness into comedy in a way few others could pull off. That's why fans were caught off guard by the news. Longfellow seemed to be on an upward climb, and usually it takes a few more years before newer cast members either break out or fade away. So why now? Some speculate that SNL's cutthroat schedule wasn't the right fit for his style. Others point to the possibility of bigger projects calling his name. And with SNL's behind-the-scenes culture coming under scrutiny after other cast members spoke out this week, there are whispers that the environment might have played a role. Whatever the reason, Longfellow's exit adds another layer of uncertainty to a cast that suddenly looks a lot less stable. And he wasn't the only one to call it quits this week. In fact, his departure came just days after 2 other comedians announced their own exits, one of them with a very blunt message about what it's really like to work on SNL. At first, Heidi Gardner and Michael Longfellow leaving might have seemed like a coincidence, just 2 performers deciding it was time to move on. But when you zoom out, the picture looks very different. Their exits make them the 3rd and 4th cast members to announce their departures in a single week. That's not normal turnover. That's a wave. Earlier in the week, Devon Walker shocked fans when he revealed on Instagram that he was done with SNL. His message wasn't sugar-coated. He admitted the working environment was sometimes, in his words, toxic as hell. For someone who had been with the show 3 seasons, his post felt less like a goodbye and more like a warning. He compared his time on the show to a little marriage, one that was sometimes fun, sometimes rough, and ultimately not meant to last. Just days later, Emil Wakim followed with his own announcement. For him, the departure was sudden and painful. He admitted it felt like a gut punch, but also said he was grateful for the time he had. Wakim was only on the show for a single season, and his early exit raises questions about how hard it is for newcomers to find their footing on a stage as high pressure as SNL. With 4 cast members gone in under a week, fans and insiders are starting to wonder, is this just the usual preseason shuffle, or is something deeper going on behind the cameras? Because if Devon Walker's words are any indication, the answer may not be so simple. While Devon Walker lit a fire with his blunt words, Emil Wakim's departure carried a very different tone, but it was just as telling. After only 1 season on SNL, he admitted on Instagram that leaving felt like a gut punch. His message struck a balance between gratitude and heartbreak, thanking the show for the opportunity, but making it clear the call to let him go hit hard. For fans, Wakim's exit highlights one of the most brutal realities of Saturday Night Live. Not everyone makes it past their first year. The show has always been a revolving door, testing out new talent to see who connects with audiences. But what makes his departure stand out is the timing. Coming in the same week as Gardner, Longfellow, and Walker, it feels less like standard turnover and more like a purge. That has sparked plenty of speculation online. Was Wakim's contract simply not renewed, or was this part of the sweeping major changes that Lorne Michaels promised were on the way? Some argue that SNL may be trying to trim the cast to make room for new blood, while others think these cuts could be a sign the show is struggling to balance tradition with the demand for fresher voices. And when you look at Walker's comments about the work culture being toxic, it makes you wonder, was Emil's softer goodbye masking frustrations he didn't want to air publicly? Because while he chose not to point fingers, the timing of his departure suggests his story may be linked to a bigger problem, one the show has tried to keep behind closed doors. Devon Walker's words hit harder than any sketch he ever performed on stage. He flat out described the SNL environment as toxic as hell. That's not the kind of goodbye anyone expects from a cast member, especially one who had already survived 3 demanding seasons. And it wasn't just a quick jab. He compared his time there to a little marriage, admitting that while some moments were really cool, the overall experience left him burned out. For longtime fans, this isn't the first time they've heard whispers like this. Behind the laughter and the live sketches, stories have surfaced for years about the show's grueling schedule, high-pressure rewrites, and a competitive culture where only the strongest personalities survive. It's a breeding ground for brilliance, but also for breakdowns. Rumors suggest the younger generation of comedians has had an especially hard time adjusting to that grind. The late-night writing marathons, last-minute changes before air, and the constant competition for screen time can turn what looks like a dream job into a nightmare. And when a comedian as outspoken as Walker uses his exit to expose that reality, it forces people to ask, is SNL pushing away the very talent it needs to survive? Adding fuel to the fire, social media reactions exploded after his post. Some fans praised him for speaking out, saying it confirmed what they'd long suspected about the show's backstage culture. Others wondered if his honesty cost him opportunities, and if future cast members will stay silent rather than risk their careers. Either way, Walker's words can't be ignored. And with multiple exits piling up in the same week, they don't just sound like personal frustration, they sound like a warning. But when you look at who's steering the ship, it all circles back to one man, Lorne Michaels. Whenever SNL faces controversy, all eyes eventually turn to one figure, Lorne Michaels. As the show's creator and longtime overseer, he's been the driving force behind every season for nearly 50 years. And just last week, he openly admitted in an interview that major changes were on the way. On the surface, that comment might explain the sudden wave of exits. Heidi Gardner, Michael Longfellow, Devon Walker, Emil Wakim. If Lorne is clearing the deck to make room for new voices, then maybe this is just part of the plan. But for fans, the timing feels suspicious. Did these cast members leave on their own, or were they quietly pushed out as part of Michael's reset? It wouldn't be the first time. SNL has a long history of abrupt cast reshuffles. Sometimes it breathes new life into the show. Other times, it sparks backlash when beloved performers vanish overnight. And now, with 4 exits in under a week, speculation is running wild that Lorne might be orchestrating one of the biggest shakeups in years. But here's the bigger question. Is this about refreshing the lineup, or is it damage control? Walker's comments about a toxic culture put the spotlight on the show's work environment. By announcing departures and hinting at fresh faces, is Michaels trying to shift the narrative before season 51 begins? Fans are divided. Some see this as a necessary move to keep SNL relevant in an era where sketch comedy faces more competition than ever. Others feel like the sudden losses expose cracks in the foundation that even new talent won't fix. And with the new season only weeks away, the pressure on Lorne has never been greater. Because the show isn't just losing cast members, it's facing a test of survival. With all these exits piling up, the question hanging over everything is simple. What's next? Saturday Night Live isn't just any show. It's a cultural institution, one that has survived countless ups and downs since 1905. But heading into season 51, it feels like the stakes are higher than ever. NBC has already confirmed the new season will premiere on October 4th. That means we're only weeks away from seeing who replaces the departed cast members. Lorne Michaels has promised new faces, and announcements are expected soon. But whether those newcomers can capture the same magic as Gardner, Longfellow, and the others is far from guaranteed. The show is at a crossroads. On one hand, the turnover could inject fresh energy, giving SNL the reboot it needs to stay relevant in a comedy landscape now dominated by TikTok skits and viral YouTube creators. On the other hand, too much change at once risks alienating longtime fans who tune in for familiar faces and reliable laughs. And let's not forget, this isn't just about casting. With Walker calling out the toxic culture and multiple departures coming in rapid succession, the show's reputation is being tested. For the first time in years, fans aren't just asking who will be on SNL, they're asking whether the environment behind the scenes is sustainable. So when season 51 finally kicks off, it won't just be a premiere, it'll be a test of whether Saturday Night Live can adapt, recover, and prove that after half a century on the air, it still has something to say. In just 1 week, Saturday Night Live lost 4 cast members. Heidi Gardner, a veteran with 8 seasons under her belt. Michael Longfellow, a fresh voice who barely had time to make his mark. Devon Walker, who pulled no punches when he described the show's culture as toxic. And Emil Wakim, whose 1-season run ended with a gut-punch goodbye. Individually, these exits could be brushed off as part of SNL's usual cycle. But happening all at once, they feel like something much bigger. A signal that the legendary late-night machine may be heading toward one of the biggest transformations in its history. The real question is whether these changes will save the show or expose cracks too deep to repair. Lorne Michaels insists new talent is on the way, but fans aren't just waiting for new faces. They're wondering whether the behind-the-scenes issues will finally be addressed or whether the churn will simply continue. Either way, season 51 isn't just another season premiere. It's a turning point, a test of whether SNL can still evolve in a world where comedy is no longer confined to a single stage in New York. So what do you think? Are these departures just routine, or are they a warning sign that the show is starting to collapse under its own weight? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.